Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Riptide Lab Show, the Sliver Hive podcast, where we invite other content creators and Magic the Gathering personalities so they can talk about their own projects and share their thoughts about everything Magic the Gathering and more. Today, we have our first guests ever. They are the hosts of the Cryptic Commander podcast, which you can find both on Spotify and YouTube. John, Matt, welcome to the Riptide Lab Show.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us, man.
Great to be here.
It's my pleasure, and I wanted to return the favor since you already had me on your podcast. So now it's time that you came to the Riptide Lab Show and the very first episode ever. So
I'm excited.
It's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me, how did you start with, or how did you discover Magic the Gathering, and why did you decide to become content creators?
Okay, Matt, I'll let you go ahead and answer the questions on your end, and I'll answer the questions further on my end.
Okay. Yeah. So I actually started. It was literally my 9th birthday in 2009. I had been hearing about it from my soccer coach, in the league I was playing in. And he talked about Magic the Gathering a little bit, and so I went on the internet and looked it up, and I was like, oh, this seems cool. I like the artwork, super fancy. Like I said, I was 9, so the artwork was just intriguing to me. And Zendikar was new, and I was like, ah. And then I taught myself how to play, actually. There was nobody else I knew who played it. The soccer coach didn't have enough time. My dad was also a coach in the league, and they were friends. But I taught myself. I used YouTube. It was really fun to learn how to play. And I remember the first ever time I actually went to an LGS. I was almost 11 years old, and it was a bunch of old dudes that were, even though I was just a little kid at the time, they were like demolishing me. And I remember this one older guy, Anthony, I'll give Anthony a shout out. He's one of the greatest people I've ever met. Super kind. He really taught me, in depth about Magic, and him and I are still friends till this day. He's a fantastic guy. I bought my first ever dual lands from him too, so got that going for me. And he's a super great guy. And I actually became serious in Magic when I turned 12, and I went competitive when I was 12. And most people don't go competitive when they're 12. And the main thing was because I wanted to, beat all the older dudes. I wanted them to see this little disabled white kid come up and kick their butts in Magic. And
that's awesome.
Exactly what I did.
I like that attitude. I really dig it. What about you, John?
Okay, we lost Matt for a second. So that's 2 questions. I'll try and just briefly answer here and give you the best description as possible. When I started playing Magic the Gathering was late 1993.
All right.
And I was going through a high school. I went to some class that they were in a lunch break, and they were playing Magic the Gathering, and I saw the artwork. And that's what really caught my eye, was the artwork. Not the mechanics of the game or the fact they were keeping life on a chalkboard, And then later on, I went to a store. There was a hobby store with, other things like Star Wars and whatnot. And they had Magic the Gathering cards for $3.99 or something. It was...
Yeah.
I can't remember the set. There was Ice Age. There was Revised. There was 4th edition.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Man.
And people were collecting. So a lot of the people I knew were collecting the cards. And I was like, when I finally got into it, I was like, I just want to play the game. I don't care what they're worth, because the rumor on the street they were worth money. And
are they? Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, when we first started, nobody knew the prices of anything. We thought like a Leviathan that would cost 3 blue, 3 other with an upkeep cost, worth more than the Black Lotus, okay? And the dual lands, nobody even, if you knew about the dual land, you were lucky, or blessed, however you look at it. The other part of your question is, okay, also, if I can take a step back, I became like in the Friday Night Magic scene and then going to regionals and nationals and worlds and all that back in 2006, I believe. And the other part of your question was, why did I want to become a content creator?
Yes.
I brought Matt along with me on this journey.
Yeah.
And love Matt with all my heart. So I created the Cryptic Commander podcast, and I wanted to do that, and I'll tell you the reason why. Before I do, I knew that I had to get equipment, and while I was waiting on that equipment to arrive, I was brainstorming, and I was actually able to keep some of that on file for the original podcast episode, the pilot. And the idea was, I want to help players, and I want to get the podcast out, and I want people to listen to it. And if you're doing anything about podcasting, there's like a handbook where you got to stand out through the crowd. Now there's hundreds, if not close to 1,000 Magic the Gathering podcasts.
Yes.
Why am I creating one, and how am I going to stand out? I had to think about this, man, for like 2 days, and the best thing I can come up with was our mission statement, which is blasted on our podcast, on the Facebook group, and it's simply Magic the Gathering is best with a communal experience, and a big part of that is when it's stemmed from knowledge. Getting assistance where needed makes it a far more enjoyable game.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually I already mentioned this on your podcast that when when I was first introduced to Magic the Gathering, the people who were playing the game, they weren't really that nice to me. They were actually kind of mean. Like they were like, "Well, what are you looking at, you stupid little kid? Like get out of here, beat it." And so I think that really, I don't know. I think I always remember that, and throughout my years of playing, I kind of made a promise to myself that I would never be like that with newer players. Like I would never be mean or blow them off or anything. So yeah, I think your mission statement is pretty cool. I really dig that.
Thank you.
So tell me, since we are both content creators, how did you start? I mean, sorry. Well, as a content creator myself, I'm always curious. How do you come up with ideas for new content? Like, could you maybe walk us through the process that you have at the Cryptic Commander?
So there's without giving too much away, I have got a network of friends, and I've got a network of people who have connections, and I look through the internet, and we know the cards. We have a history. Me and Matt both have a history with the game. Matt, you want to explain your side of things of where you're coming from?
Yeah, so I I get most of my information because I control a group with a little over 500 people in it so far. Created, I think, about a month ago now. I get a lot of my information from those people. I get a lot of my information online. It's just a mixture of the news that comes out from the Magic websites and what people are telling me they want to hear on the podcast. And I take all those things to heart. And John and I, we get together, we collaborate, and we choose what we want to put in the podcast.
All right. So do you guys write like something of I mean, not a script, obviously, because podcasts are meant to be like spontaneous, and well, I guess that's what I think. So do you guys like outline ideas or like the main topic? How does it work?
Yeah, so we choose specific topics that we want to talk about. And like you said, it needs to be a little bit spontaneous in the interaction and discussion. So we just do basic outlines for ourselves and with our special guests like you were today. And then we delve deeper into our own thoughts and feelings without really having a script, so that it seems more genuine and true to heart.
Oh, that's great. I think that as time goes by, there's more and more content creators, and more people join social media, more people join Facebook groups or other websites, and they can now, like more than ever before, voice their opinions and concerns and criticisms towards, well, Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering in general. Like, and that's why there are two topics in particular that always seem to be like the center of attention, or at least in the last couple of years. First, there's card design, and therefore concepts like power creep, excessive bannings, and second, well, it's the increase in product output by WotC and the prices of some of that product. So I would like to hear your opinions on these two topics, like first, card design, power creep, all of the bannings, and then just the so much product output and the prices. So what do you guys think about this?
You want me to go first, Matt?
No, you can go ahead and go first. I've been talking so much.
No, you're fine. No, I was asking.
You guys are so nice. Like I really like having like nice people in the community. That's always welcome. So
Thank you. Appreciate
come
it.
on, John.
So the power creep to me is near and dear in my heart. Playing the game so long, I can't do the math. It's 27 years or something.
Yeah.
And, it's a thing. You know, I mentioned it earlier today. I think it was on the podcast. I could be wrong. That a young kid came up to me about 20 years old, and he said, "You want to play a game? Because I heard you know how to play." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got a deck or two, you know." And they're just like, "Oh, John, you know, beat him up." And I'm, you know, like we're on a school playground or something.
Oh, what's happening there?
No, I'm
Did you hear that beep?
yeah.
What the hell? Wasn't supposed to go through.
That was Matt plugging something in and unplugging something.
No,
Oh.
that was. I didn't touch anything.
Oh, okay.
My
So
computer randomly does that. Sorry.
the power creep thing is near and dear to my heart because, like I said, the kid wanted to play a game with me, and I took out a modern deck, and I was planning to beat him turn 3. That game lasted a lot longer than turn 3, and the reason was he was playing a standard legal deck from I think it was 2016, 2014, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was playing a deck from, gosh, 1996. I don't know, man. I can't remember what year it was made. Yeah, I don't know what year it was made, but I just know that everybody knows it was one of my better decks, and I was going to beat him turn 3 or something, you know.
Mhm.
But power creep is definitely there.
Yeah.
You see it with, you know, the sets that are coming out now, and I'm not talking about the master sets. You know, I'm talking about like the new standard sets you're coming out with, and like the new Ugin's pretty good. You know, somebody puts an Ugin down, the game's pretty much over at that point.
Yeah. Gotta love Eugene.
Yeah, Eugene. Okay. And the other part of the question was the increase in product. That's been a concern to me. You know, it used to be they only had, you know, you knew about the game or you didn't know about the game, and then they came out with an expansion. I think it was called Ice Age, and that was the first expansion. We weren't sure if you can mix these cards with the original Magic cards, so the shop owners told us you could, and we weren't sure, but we did it anyway. And we didn't know about standard or anything like that. You know, they did start to develop formats, and I couldn't keep up with it. It was Type 1, Type 2, Extended, you know. But the product was only once every 4 months. And they had a summer set, winter set. You know, again, only 4 times a year they come out with a set. Now, it seems like every week on our podcast we're mentioning new products. You know, I mean, it really I joke about it sometimes. I need a summer job.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I made a meme about this thing in my Facebook page. Like, do you guys know this meme where there's this kid next to a girl, and the kid is looking like he's holding like a fart or something? I don't know. So I wrote on the meme like, when WotC hasn't released a new secret layer in 10 minutes, you know, because it feels like that, you know, like every week there's just a new product announcement, you know, whether it is a new master set or a new secret layer or the new standard legal expansion or set or whatever.
Yeah, commander
Yeah,
sets,
I mean,
anthologies,
yeah.
spell books, Modern Horizons, you know, standard. Like
Did you say secret layer?
he said that first. Matt, what's your opinion on power creep or product increase?
I mean, honestly, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I have a similar experience, but the opposite of yours, where I had a newer deck and I was playing against an older deck. It was actually my sister's boyfriend who I was playing against. It was one of the first times I was playing Magic against him, and I had an Eldrazi deck, And this was
Nice.
the Battle for Zendikaro's Gatewatch era.
Oof.
Second.
Yeah, and he was playing a very, very powerful legacy deck, but nothing could beat my Eldrazi deck. And he was blown away. He was like, "What's an Eldrazi?" And I was just like, "Just a card that you just got beat with." Uh, and so I've used power creep to my advantage. Obviously, any standard player does, and I just think as time goes on, there's going to be those new powerful cards introduced, and people like myself who also play Legacy, Vintage, Old School. I used to play Modern, not as much anymore. I don't enjoy it as much. Mostly play Legacy and Commander now, but as time goes forward, we're really just going to have to buckle down and
Yep.
not necessarily get with the meta, not necessarily net deck, but we're going to need to figure out new ways to get around that power creep and beat newer cards.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that you were using the infamous Eldrazi Winter deck with Eye of Ugin and all of that stuff. That's the
No,
deck.
I was using my own deck that I had made. It was just an Eldrazi Scion deck. It was
Oh, okay.
blue, green, white, and basically just spammed a bunch of 1/1s out early
Okay.
game and got a bunch of mana. I would play cards like World Breaker and some other big Eldrazi's like Emrakul and just swing for game the next turn. And people would be like, "What?"
Wow. Yeah.
I wish I had gone competitive with it, but you know.
No, but imagine if you had been playing that Eye of Ugin deck. That deck was practically unbeatable. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason why we have the Eldrazi Winter.
Yeah.
And I mean, come on, it's like the Hogak Summer and now the Oko year or whatever. So that deck was insane.
I don't have anything against net decking. I think all net decking means is people are doing the research and playing what they think is the best thing to play.
Thank you.
And there are people who disagree with that, and I respect all those opinions, right? And I like to go both ways. I like to be competitive and use those net decks,
Exactly.
but I also like to homebrew and make my own decks. And
moved on to a different subject. I want to touch on that too. Go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm pretty much done now.
Well, net decking to me, there shouldn't be no problem with it. I remember when I was doing regionals, nationals, and all that. Back in the day. Now they call them what RPPTQs or whatever. But
Yep.
let's just confuse the people more. But no. So back then, they okay. What we're talking about? You're just talking about Come on, help me out here.
How net decking is okay to do.
Net decking. Yeah. So I was doing I was going to tournaments and stuff, and I thought I don't have a lot of friends that play. So I'm gonna go ahead and see, like what's in the scene on this kind of deck that I'm playing with, and see if there's any key cards that I'm missing. Because sometimes I use tech, I call it, like the hidden scribe visions or something like that. Farseek. Farseek was a card from the Eldrazi days where it was you scry 2 and draw 2 or something like that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this for my hidden deck tech. Nobody knows about this. And
The secret deck.
yeah, this deck tech, and I go on the internet to see if I'm missing anything in my deck, and I don't see anything wrong with net decking it at all, man.
Yeah, actually, I've touched on this topic before in this channel. Actually, like a couple of videos ago, where I explain my feelings about this whole net decking versus brewers endless war. Like it's so weird. Like I thought that this whole, again, net deckers versus home brewers endless war was over years ago, and no, it's just never ending. It's like it's always there.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean neither. And it's just like, guys, you need to understand that people just approach the game in different ways, and not everyone is going to be able to approach the game the same way that you do, And for example, in my video, I talked about some of my friends who, two of them are doctors. So, I mean, come on, imagine the kind of schedule that a neurosurgeon has. Like, is that guy really going to have hours and hours every day to brew his own decks? Like, obviously, I mean, I don't expect that. And he obviously net decks, and because he wants to be able to play the game like in the most efficient way possible and have a reasonable chance to win. And so net decking is a great tool for that. I mean, and what he doesn't deserve to enjoy the game and have a reasonable chance to win. Of course he does. So yeah, I've never understood that I hate net deckers thing.
Yeah, well, exactly, and I do it for similar reasons, not because I'm a neurosurgeon, because I'm definitely not a neurosurgeon, but I'm a business owner and a content creator, and I'm about to start college classes again, and so just my schedule is always pretty crazy, and people are like, dude, you need to homebrew all your decks, or you're not a real competitive winner.
You're not creative. You're not smart.
I'm like, I'm a content creator. Like, look at my creative juices flowing in the podcast, and um, and I'm like, here, I'll hand you over my business for a day, and I'll see how you like to do that. And they're like, oh no, bro, just go homebrew some stuff and come back to me. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I guess that whole war is never going to end, and I just don't understand why. But I mean, whatever. So before we move on to the next question, we were discussing power creep a little bit. I don't know if you guys saw this video that Seth Saffron Olive, for everyone who knows him like by that, like the guy from MTG Goldfish, he made a video where he plays banned ramp from standard before the Teferi ban against modern jump. So that video came to my I remember that video because of the experiences that you guys were sharing with other players, and like I'm gonna use my legacy deck, and suddenly that legacy deck isn't good enough, and and it cannot compete against modern decks or even standard decks. And so I remember this video, like Seth totally, like he obliterated the John deck. Like there was never any competition. Like it was so much value with the Uro and Teferi and Elspeth Conquers Death. I mean, it's a 5 CMC card, and he was exiling stuff and getting back his Teferis, and like the John deck, which is, I mean, I guess it's not the most powerful modern deck ever, but come on, like it's such an emblematic deck for modern, and it has powerful cards too, like Thoughtseize and Renan 6, Liliana, and it just couldn't compete against Band Ramp. What do you guys think about it? Did you guys see that video?
I did not see the video, but I agree with your opinion. And I mentioned it earlier that the power creep to me is a real thing. And we're going to be seeing people in the future come back and get the cards we have now that we're playing with in standard. And they're going to want to put that to the missing tech they need for the new powerful cards they have in the future, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So, speaking of powerful cards, the name of your podcast is the Cryptic Commander. So I'm guessing Cryptic Command is a card you really like, and maybe Commander is your favorite format. Maybe both, maybe neither. I don't know.
Well, John actually created all that, so he's better to answer that one.
That's a great question. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Cryptic Command is one of the favorite cards of mine, and I loved Wayne England. He was my favorite artist, and he passed away. But Cryptic Command is one of my most favorite cards in the game, and the commander part is because it kind of flows with the word command. And we don't focus on commander, we focus on all formats. So we mentioned Magic the Gathering Arena, we mention commander. I mean, you name the format, we're going to mention it. If there's news about it, we're going to talk about it. If it's hot in trend right now, we're going to talk about it.
Right. So, Cryptic Command is also one of my favorite cards of all time. And it's also a good example of power creep, right? Because nowadays, well, I remember the first time I saw Cryptic Command in action, I was like, wow, really? It does that? Like, it counters and it draws, or it counters and it bounces something. And nowadays, I mean, it's kind of slow, you know. If I wanted to play modern, like I don't know if I could bring myself to play 4 copies of Cryptic Command in one deck. Like
Yeah.
I think I would be like in disadvantage, you know, because the like Magic the Gathering has gotten like so fast, so powerful, and so now cards like Cryptic Command, which I love. Yeah, I mean it's kind of slow and it's all right. What do you guys think about that?
That touches near and dear to my heart too. It's hard to answer that question for me because I agree with you. You know, the power creep's a thing, and we talked about it even on this show right here, 2 or 3 times alone. And I feel that I'm getting old maybe or something because the old cards that I love, that are powerful, and we talk about power level. I play a format called Cube, and it doesn't matter if it's rare, mythic, rare, uncommon, common. It's just the power level of the card. Now,
Yeah.
if you look at Cryptic Command by itself, it's a very powerful card. Okay,
Yeah.
it's cost 3 blue, 1 other. It's an instant. It's got 4 modes. So some people call it abilities, but they're modes, and you get to pick 2 of those modes. Now, if you happen to copy that card, just if you do, then you got to choose the same mode. So whatever mode you chose originally, and you copy that spell, Cryptic Command. I just know this for a fact. You got to have the same modes, and the card really is near and dear to my heart. Yeah, it goes with other cards too, though. Like if you look at okay, let's look at something else. Smuggler's Copter. Okay, just Smuggler's Copter for an example. Okay, I
Oh,
know.
I hate that card.
Right. Okay, but 10 years from now, let's say 2030 or 2031, I think it's going to be not as powerful then because I'm seeing a trend after
It's gonna
playing.
be pauper legal, man. I mean, what are you talking about?
No,
if things continue the way they are, I mean, Smuggler's Copter is just going to be some draft shaft common, like, you know?
yeah,
So let's talk about Black Lotus.
see what you're talking about. I mean, if you reference the double, if you're referencing the double masters thing where they're changing the level of the rarity, is that what you're talking about?
I mean, just in general, like, if you take a look at I mean, one of my favorite examples that I use with newer players is Savannah Lions. That card, I remember when I discovered Magic the Gathering, we used to think that it was broken as hell. Like, what? It has 2 power for 1 mana. Like, why? Like, that's so broken. And now Savannah Lions, it's an unplayable common in Pauper. Like most 1 mana creatures nowadays, they have 1 power and 2 toughness, or vice versa. Or the other way around, and at least an ability, like a keyword or an enters the battlefield ability or a dice trigger. Like, it's unreal. So
Well,
that's why I was saying that if
I mean,
things
just look at double
continue,
hierarchy.
yeah, if things continue the way they are, Smuggler's Copter is going to be like some random common that no one cares about, and Cryptic Command is going to be an uncommon. I don't know. I hope not, because I love that card, and it would be heartbreaking to see it get a downshift in rarity. But yeah, I mean, power creep is definitely real. So what were you saying, John?
okay. Well, the thing to me is, and I don't want to sound like I'm an expert in the field of designing Magic the Gathering cards, but I do have to show respect where respect is due.
Yes.
You on the podcast, Emmanuel, you were saying on the Cryptic Commander podcast that hold on here, I've got to think back what you said. You said that you got to respect the people that are designing the cards, right? And
Yep.
now I built a cube. Have you know about the format cube?
Yep. I played it in. It's quite fun.
Okay, great. So what my point, why I'm bringing this up, is when you build a cube, you're building a world of Magic the Gathering cards that you're creating. 50 white, 50 green, 50 blue, 50. If you get my point, 50 colorless, 50 multicolored.
Yep.
50 non-basic lands, stuff like that. It doesn't matter what your numbers are, but it does matter what you're putting in your cube, because what you're putting in your cube is what's going to come out. Just like when you're Magic the Gathering deck, any format, Commander, Standard, even Draft, okay? But when you're building a cube, and I mentioned earlier too that when you build a cube, it doesn't matter what the rarity is; it just matters what the power level of the card. You kind of see where Wizards of the Coast is coming from when they have to build these sets. So like Modern Masters, okay, right? So I think you see where I'm coming from. Modern Masters, it's going to have Jace the Mind Sculptor. It's going to have Force of Will. What? Am I reading this right? Force of.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, before this set came out, how easy was it for you to get a Force of Will? You know what I'm saying? Now, did they change the power level of the card? No, they didn't. They didn't change the power level of the card. They didn't change anything about the card. Did they change the rarity of the card? I don't know. I didn't look that deep into it. But I do know that I think when they're putting a set together, and I'm not talking about the whole history of Magic, I just think that when they put a set together, in that set, just like if it was Ice Age, if that makes sense, in that set, this is the power level of that card. This is how rare the card should be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Double Masters, it's supposed to be a draft set. It's something you draft. And so I remember, for example, the Ultimate Masters. It was such a fun draft environment. I mean, I think it's one of the best I've ever played. And I mean, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I guess the power creep thing, it's more, I don't know, like we were talking about earlier, it's like, well, we gotta keep things interesting for new players, especially standard players, because, well, that's what sells more packs, right? Like,
well, you gotta remember too that standard is the lifeblood of the game.
Exactly.
If standard goes away, Magic the Gathering is going to go away.
Exactly. So they gotta keep selling packs. I mean, that's not a mystery or anything. I mean, we're not discovering anything new here, and they obviously have to keep it interesting. So no one's going to keep buying packs if the rare is Savannah Lions, if the mythic rare is I don't know, the Leviathan that we were talking about earlier, the one that is 3 blue and it has an upkeep cost or something, like it's a terrible card. Like, right. No one's going to keep buying packs if the rares and the mythic rares are cards like that, So I understand. It's so hard to balance, and that's what I was saying, that I really respect Wizards of the Coast. Like, they obviously have their mistakes, and there's a lot of things we could criticize about them. Like, for example, their hypocrisy when it comes to the reserve list, the lack of, well, the fetch lands are another thing that, I mean, like, come on, man, it's been 5 years, just reprint the damn things already. Yep. There's a lot of things we could criticize, but I mean, they've been doing this game for 30 years now, and I think for the most part they've done a pretty good job, because it rarely has been like boring or like, oh man, it's I don't really want to play Magic the Gathering this year because it's not that interesting. Like that's usually not the case. I mean, they make a lot of people angry, obviously, but I never see people saying Magic the Gathering is boring. Like, they can find it exciting or frustrating because of the power creep, but I rarely see people saying Magic the Gathering is boring. And in my opinion, it's just the best game in the world. Like, yeah. That's how I feel. I don't know if you guys feel the same.
No, I agree with you.
Magic is the best game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've had this conversation with other people, which game do you think's the best? And it's not because I have a podcast or I've got all these decks or a cube or a book bag or a hat or shoes or whatever. It's because, like you said earlier on the podcast, there's something about the game that makes you stick out and think about it and dream about it and tap in the land and making sure. Do I tap all my land and use all my resources? Do I keep one open for this card? you always think about things like that because you love the game. You got passion for the game, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And well, for the last question of today's show, what can we expect from your podcast in the future? Do you have some, let's call it, dream guests or anything special that you really want to do or accomplish?
So the podcast, Matt helped me out with this because I'll just say my opinion. The podcast is going to grow,
Yeah.
and it's been growing. We've been upscaling, which means every time I get paid or we get a donation or anything, the money goes right into the podcast. We've got two supporters at the 99-cent level. We've got a brick and mortar that's a local game store giving us $10 a month to support us for advertising. And I think it doesn't matter about the support, but it's the community. We're all coming together, and I love new Magic the Gathering content creators. We've been in the game since February of this year, and it's gonna grow as far as people working with the podcast. Me and Matt can't do the show ourselves, and
No.
as it grows, we're gonna need help. But right now, me and Matt have we've got this. But no, I can see it being almost like a full blown production, if you know what I mean, because
Yeah.
I'm not stopping with my drive and my ambitions. I
Nope.
know I saw
Perfect.
when I first started the podcast, I saw a vision, and my wife supports me. She stands behind my decisions moving forward with anything we do. We talked about having Matt on the show and getting him on the show. And yeah, I mean, I see that there's going to be great things. We've already had Sheldon Menery, which most consider the father of EDH
Yep.
/ Commander. We've had Sheldon Menery on the show. He's already agreed to come on the show again. We've had on Usman Jamil, and he's considered to be the king of Cube. And we've had him on the show. He's already agreed to come on the show. I can blatantly put out there that we've got David Brian Marshall is going to come on the show.
Wow.
We're working with him, and it's just going to be a matter of time that fits out for him because, again, we are booked ourselves on the podcast until what was it, October, Matt, or something?
Yeah, we're booked all the way until October. I got a varying level of special guests coming on, from people that have 1,000+ subscribers to people that are just starting out, and I'm just doing that so to show people that this really is a community-based game, and we're here to help each other out and grow together.
Perfect.
I've been marketing the Cryptic Commander. Matt's been helping me out market the Cryptic Commander, and we've been doing it mostly through Facebook groups.
Yep.
We appreciate all the Facebook groups that
Yeah.
allow us to post in the Facebook groups. I don't want to sound like a broken record. We have thousands of listens. We
Yeah.
have hundreds of people that are subscribed. We are being broadcast in 28 countries. Today, South Korea picked us up, I think it was.
Yeah.
I can double check that, but I got the stats right in front of me. It's all on my laptop. It blows my mind that every day I wake up and it reminds me of like a V, the letter V. And okay, so like the very bottom's a point, and we had like a penny drop in the bucket. And then the next day I woke up, we had 36 cents in the bucket. And the next day I woke up, we had $4 in the bucket. And it's not about the money. It's about how the podcast is growing, how we're evolving, and how we are getting feedback from the listeners and working with our Facebook group, which is called the Cryptic Commander Facebook group.
Mhm.
And they're letting us know that, yeah, we love the card of the day. We love this segment. We want to hear this now. We want to hear that.
That's excellent, and that's amazing. So, yeah, I hope your podcast just keeps growing and reaching more people, because I think it's an amazing project. And one last question. If you could have anyone from the Magic the Gathering community come to your podcast, who would it be and why?
Yeah, LSV. I've already reached out to Louis Scott Vargas, and he said he can't do it this year. So I'm not taking that as a no. I can't find those keys on my keyboard.
Yeah, I think honestly my dream guest would be Richard Garfield.
Wow.
Just because he's the man of the game, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like he's just such an intuitive and intelligent human being, and to really be able to listen to his words and be able to ask the questions I've always wanted to ask him would be just truly an amazing experience.
Yeah, Richard's hard to get a hold of. Reached out to him a few times. I know that, he creates other games still. And
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering was one that really got him famous, and I love Richard Garfield, man, and I thought he was going to be the guy that was always on the box, not Wizards of the Coast one day. I'm like, Wizards of the Coast, what's this? And then they bought out TSR, which was Dungeons and Dragons, and
Yep.
but that's a different story.
You can see the difference, right? Like when Richard Garfield came back for Dominaria.
Richard,
Like wow.
Richard Garfield came back a few times, actually.
Yeah. But that it's just like an example, right? Because Dominaria was like so different and so much better than many of the sets that were released before and after. Like I remember, like the draft was amazing. The in general, the limited environment was really cool. The set itself, like the sagas, like it was such a cool new type of car, and it's all Richard Garfield, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, because I hear word around town, even when I go to my local game store, that one of the most modern sets that everybody's favorite is Dominaria. Yep. And that's the way they call it. They call it Dom. They just say Dom. What do you want to draft tonight? I think I'm gonna go Dom. It's Dominaria, in my opinion, was I think the first plane we ever talked about. So we weren't even planeswalkers back then. We were magic users. We were wizards.
Yep.
And we were casting spells and casting creatures. And, the big furry monster for 99 flying. We're doing all kinds of stuff, but it wasn't like Magic is today. And there's a Facebook group out there, like Old School Magic the Gathering, and I tried posting on there, and they accepted me. But the thing is the podcast about Old School Magic the Gathering? And yes and no. I mean, it covers everything.
Yeah.
Whatever's trending, whatever the people want to hear, and whatever we want to talk about.
Well, I'm going to make a bold prediction here, and I'm going to say that, and for everyone listening or watching to this video later on, you saw it first on the Sliver Hive. Like this is Papa Sliver's prediction for the Cryptic Commander. You guys are going to have LSB next year and Richard Garfield too. I can see it happening. And because you guys are doing a great job, and I think you're absolutely going to keep growing and reaching more people, and I think your podcast is great. So,
Thank you.
Where can people find you on social media, by the way?
So we got the Cryptic Commander Facebook group.
Yeah.
Right.
And also we have the podcast, which you can find anywhere you find your podcast. You listen to your podcast. We're on iTunes, Google. I think Google's changing their services. It's still on there, but I got an email yesterday that they're switching over to YouTube. But you can listen to us everywhere you get your podcast. Spotify, Podbean. I mean, the list goes on. People ask me, are you on Stitcher? Of course we're on Stitcher. When I create the podcast, every day I woke up, I made sure I contacted 100 different companies. So, yeah, we're out there.
Perfect.
I think iHeartRadio and iTunes were the hardest to get on, but we're there. We're there too.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, well, thank you very much, John and Matt. It was a pleasure having you on the first episode ever of the Riptide Lab show. And, well, like I said, I hope your project continues to grow and develop, and hopefully we can collaborate again in the future.
Oh, whenever you want to, man.
Fantastic.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. So for everyone listening, thank you so much, and we'll gather again on the next episode.